Hi, everyone. Hello. Firstly, let me start by apologizing for my very quick and dirty presentation. Unfortunately, I didn't have much time to prepare. I'm also moving home and and yeah, work. So my name is Samuel, Sam for my friends, or Sami, as some people like to call me. Um, I At this point, I guess you are actually asking yourselves, where the hell is this guy from? Because of my accent. So yeah, I was born in 1992 in the city of Lisbon in Portugal. In the early 2000s, my parents decided to make what I call the Great Move Part One. So we've moved from Lisbon to a very small town in the border between Portugal and Spain called Ayamonte. It's a very, very small town. This is where I was raised. Um, and then in the year 2013, after I graduated from university, I thought, what the hell am I doing here? And I did what I call the Great Move Part Two, and I decided to move to Manchester, where I started my professional life. Um, and ever since I've been here in Manchester, I'm in love with the city. I love it here. I would never consider moving, but who knows? So, a little bit of my professional background. I started working at Booking.com originally as a customer service team lead, which shows my passion for customers and for users. And then from that, I moved into data analytics, more specifically customer insight. And then I started my journey in user research. Okay. From there, I moved to TalkTalk. Who here knows TalkTalk? Horrible service sometimes, right? So that's what we were trying to improve, the service there. And then I moved to a little company, not so little, called N Brown Group. I don't know if any of you know N Brown Group. It's a very big company based in Manchester. It's a retail group. Um, and now I work at Didi. Who here knows Didi? No one. So think of Uber, but Chinese. So that is Didi. It's the biggest tail riding company in the world. Okay. I joined them as a senior user research, and in the past few months, I moved to be a research manager for their international business group. So, to start this today, have you ever been in this situation where you are with a friend or maybe alone at a cafe shop, a restaurant, and you're trying to exit, and you push that door instead of pulling? Who happened to that? To anyone? Okay, so in design or in user research, we call those Norman doors. Do you know why that happens? No? So Norman doors happen because, well, one third of design, the door is not designed correctly. That means that the handle is not in the right position, or because of where you are, your location bias, you think, well, this door should really be pushed outside or pulled in. Um, and also personal experiences. You're used to pulling a door or pushing a door instead of the other way around. So this goes back again to what user research is. It's all about empathy and considering where you are, your emotions, your personal experiences, etc. So when you talk about and when you think about talking to users and to your customers, I don't like to use the word users too often. I like to call them customers, people, human. Hence, my team at Didi, we like to call ourselves human insights instead of user research. Because we deal with a cohort of people, so not just direct customers, but also drivers, couriers, because we also have delivery of food, restaurants. We also work in finance, so there's just finance users or customers, etc. So going back to that Norman door, it's a really good example to show you how an idea, it's not always the best thing. You have to consider your customers. You have to consider the people, your human base. Yeah. So let's consider something. You have an idea. You want to build a business. Yeah. But you're not testing it. Does that mean it's going to work? Maybe. But if you have empathy and if you talk to your users and you study it, you might actually achieve a little bit more. Who knows? And that's how you test it. That's how you talk to people. Because empathy is the base of creating a good business and a good customer experience. In user research, we use something called an empathy map, where we look at our users, our human base, and we consider the things that they say, things that they think, what they do, and how they feel. Yeah. So when you are looking at your customer base or your future customer base, if you want to start a business, these are the things that you should be looking out for to make sure that you are spot on, that your user is at the center of all of this. Yeah. But then you think to yourself, but how do I really talk to users? Yeah. So there's so many ways to talk to users. I think, the clear examples would be, interviews, you speak to someone face to face or on a Zoom phone call or whatever it is that we do these days. Everyone has a different method. Um, you can do observation, what we call ethnography in research. So you give people a task and you observe what they do, and then you can ask them questions about it so you understand why they've done it, and that way. There's also surveys, which I'm pretty sure most of you know here. You might receive them very so often in your inboxes and then just forward them to the junk um, to the junk folder. Sometimes they're too long. People don't want to fill them in because they are too long. Um, but they do sometimes give companies a lot of information. Yeah. There's something called card sorting. Who here knows what card sorting is? Yeah, so you give people um, a lot of what we call cards with different options, and you ask them to group them into different categories that they think they make sense for them. Then you ask them about it. You try to understand a little bit of their rationale. And then there's Google. And the reason I put Google here is because there are so many different opinions on Google that you can access just like this. Just look at all these websites like Trustpilot. So if your idea has got a potential competitor, you can look at the reviews that they have and think, well, I don't want to do that. And how can I try to contact these people that actually left a review on a competitor or a potential competitor that I have and ask them more questions about it, because I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person that makes that mistake. But there is something that is really important to consider in all of these situations, which is when you're interviewing someone or observing or even a survey, is what types of questions you're asking them. Yeah. So I'll give you three examples of questions. You have open questions. So I use here, how would you describe me? It's a very open question. I'm just asking someone to describe you without giving them any sort of further information. I'm not saying how would you describe me physically, how would you describe me, I don't know, intellectually, psychologically, etc. So this allows you for a wider range of answers. What happens when you are very broad in your questions is that you end up getting more than what you ask for. And this is great because you can explore even more what you want to achieve. Then there are leading questions, and those are usually the ones that you want to avoid. So what are my sexiest features? Yeah. So this narrows your answer to a certain type. So you are basically assuming at this point that you have some sexy qualities, which might not be true, but you are forcing people to give you an answer that might not be real. And then you have close and direct questions, which is sexier, my elbows or my knees? So basically, what you'll get from this is a this or that kind of situation. So you're only giving people two options. Um, and yeah, I always tell people to remember that if the options that you're providing are stupid, you're going to get stupid answers. Um, so this was basically what I had. I thought that at this point we could have more of like a Q&A kind of session where you can ask me questions about my professional experiences or personal experiences that I've had, and I can give you some insights as to how I would consider or how I would do it in a user research point of view. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what we try to look at, it's really patterns, yeah, or trends in the data that you're analyzing. Yeah. Just consider that in user research, we don't consider just um, binary, just 101010. We look at actual trends in the data that we are receiving, and we turn those into a bit more of comments. But also, quantitative can also be comments. So, for example, a survey, it's a type of a quantitative measure. Yeah, you're not measuring the amount of comments you've received. You are measuring really the amount of trends that you've received from that survey. Yeah, and then you can turn them into actionable insights by analyzing the comments that you have versus the problems that you're facing. So really, if you consider this, user research is not really about finding a solution, it's about understanding the problem. Yeah, the solution comes from design, comes from the next stage. Yeah, and then you will test that solution, and it's again part of user research. But really, when you are doing surveys or speaking to people in an interview setting, what you are doing is understanding the problem, not defining a solution. Yeah.
How would you encourage customers to actually participate in these surveys forms? Because, for example, me as a customer or
Mm-hmm.
like a user, I never fill out anything.
Very easy. Incentives. So if you receive an email saying, fill out this survey and get a £5 voucher for Starbucks, for example, would you do that survey?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. If you receive the same survey and didn't say anything, would you do that survey?
Yeah, well, for example, is that information worth £5 for the company?
Definitely. Definitely. You just have to think of how much money can you make out of improving your company, out of improving your survey. So if you send out your survey to 50 participants and you're paying them each £5, that's £250 that you're sending out in incentives to get 50 comments. But if you improve your service immensely, you can make a lot of benefit out of those £250.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
What are usually like the biggest mistakes that you see people make when trying to do user research that maybe you've made in the past?
Ooh. So I think the biggest one is definitely bias or assumption bias. Does anyone know here what assumption or cognitive bias is? Yeah.
It's sort of like your brain is sort of like preemptively conditioned to think a certain way. For example, like you see red is dangerous.
Yeah.
In the UK, for example, or in other countries as well.
Yeah, exactly. So cognitive bias is usually where you have your mindset on something, you have an assumption, and you either lead all the research to validate what you want or what you expect, or even if you don't, when you analyze the results, you will transform them into what you want them to look like, and that's assumption bias. So or cognitive bias. So really what we try to do in user research is have really a clear mind and just listen to what people have to say. And what I try to do as well when I'm analyzing is I don't analyze the same days that I run the actual research um, sessions. So if I'm interviewing people or if I'm, I don't know, doing a survey and I get all the results one day, what I try to do is not analyze it that same day. I will let 1 or 2 days pass until I go back to those, because by the day I go back to the results, I've removed any cognitive bias that I had, because I'm no longer thinking, oh yeah, this person said this and it made a lot of sense, so everyone else should agree with this person. I'm no longer thinking of that 2 days later. Yeah. Okay. So you have to consider that a survey, like any type of conversation, it's very much about storytelling. Yeah. So when you are asking questions, you have to, firstly to make sure that your questions follow an order that makes sense to the person that's filling them out. Yeah. You cannot start by asking them their age and then ask them a bunch of other questions and then later on ask them, by the way, when is your birthday? And you've already asked them their age, but then 3, 4 questions on the line, you're asking them something differently. For your results, for your analysis, doesn't really make much of an impact. But for the user that is filling it out, it's very confusing to be asked about something and then something directly related 4, 5, 6 questions down the line on a survey. Then you also have to think about the duration and how long your survey is. Yeah, that's very important. If you want people to be engaged, and the same applies to an interview, if you want people to be engaged, you cannot ask them, a lot of questions, very long questions, and give them a lot of options to choose from. Yeah, because when you give people a lot of choices, they tend to choose nothing. Yeah, it's called the choice paradox. If anyone wants to search and browse a bit more about it. Um, yeah, so I would definitely say don't ask them too many questions. Be straightforward. Don't ask any leading questions, as I said before. So don't ask too many leading questions. If you are looking for this or that, just like give them a couple of 2, 3 options if you just want them to choose out of a range that you already have. Because, as I said, that will give you an answer with close-direct questions. And then you have open questions, which usually give you comments, open text. Um, what I tend to do usually when I'm starting a survey is that I will ask a lot of open questions on the first phase of presenting, of asking questions, and then I iterate on my survey and I improve it by looking at the previous data and looking at the patterns. Yeah, so I might start asking maybe 3 open questions. I get a lot of comments. I look at 10, 20 people that have answered, and then I close the survey, I analyze those answers, and then I restructure my survey to make sure that now I'm asking the questions that are relevant to the comments that I've had previously. Yeah.
Just like a little follow-up question on that. You said something about not making your surveys too long.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically for surveys, what have you found to be the sweet spot in terms of like the amount of estimated time an average user would take to fill it out?
I would say for me, I don't really I try not to have more than 10 questions as a whole in a survey, and I like the questions to be very straight to the point, very sometimes a lot of closed questions. Um, but yeah, 10 questions, I would say that's a sweet spot. Something that people can, just go quickly through and do it in 5 minutes, 5, 10 minutes. And if I'm paying incentives, give them, I don't know, for example, as my company at Didi, we have surveys that we send out when we want to get a lot of information. And what we do is that we give them one, two, well, dollars, because most of the companies operate in different currencies, but like the equivalent of $1 or $2 for filling out a 5 to 10 minute survey maximum.
Okay.
If we incentivize it, sometimes it's just we don't.
And how do those incentives work? Are they as discounts from their products or is it direct monetary?
Usually discounts from the products, but you can do it anyways. You can offer them, yeah, gift vouchers. Yeah.
What's the answer rate from your customers?
Oh, that's a good one. So it depends on the market. It depends on the product type. So if, for example, drivers within the ride-hailing services are more likely to answer to surveys than customers because they are employees directly, so they are more likely to answer. So for drivers, we're looking at some countries at about 25% answer rate, and in other countries to up to 30, which is usually great. Um,
Really low.
No, no.
it's really high for customers.
Employees,
Yeah,
really low.
they're not direct employees, so they they are most of them are self-employed and they work within the company. They're not employees directly, but it's actually really high to have a 25 to 30% answer rate. For customers, the answer rate can go from 1% to 5, or like as a maximum 10%. You will never see more than a 10% answer rate on a survey from customers.
And you usually on those trends from customers, do you see like negative answers, like they are angry customers purely?
Um, No, I think it also depends if you are incentivizing them. If you're giving any monetary incentive versus not, then yeah, you are more likely to see upset customers when you don't give incentives because it's someone that had a really bad experience and just wants to convey it, or someone that had a really, really, really good experience and then they want to tell you about it as well. Um, and then you'll find the odd person that must be bored and decided to just do the survey, and but it happens every time. I'd like to reiterate that surveys are really good because you can get a lot of answers with very low effort. Yeah, but they shouldn't be by any means the main way that you're getting information from your customers. Okay, that is an important one. Yeah.
So obviously I'm speaking on behalf of everyone here. We don't have like company surveys yet that we have sort of tools
Hmm.
to ask our
Hmm.
survey questions to.
Hmm.
Yeah, or the budget exactly. So,
Okay.
how would you sort of recommend getting our surveys out there to the people that we need to?
Okay. So if you're talking about surveys, I think the best way is, well, firstly, use a free platform. So something like Google Forms or SurveyMonkey or Typeform. I actually like Typeform quite a lot because they're very pretty to the eye and the results are very easy to analyze. I don't know if any of you know Typeform, but they're really good. And the way they really do it is, well, I would really do it, I think, based on my experience, is print QR codes and stick them around the city. If you just want to get quick and dirty stuff, um, or do a guerrilla approach, go outside with your printed QR codes or whatever it is, and and I don't know, introduce yourself to people and ask them, could I ask you to give me some feedback on this that I'm working, or come to a library. People are usually very approachable in libraries, unless they are really stressed about their exams, and and you can always ask them to do something about it. Something like really easy to do as well is that, I don't know, you can buy a bag of sweets and ask them to fill out your survey in exchange for a sweet. I don't know. Yeah. Um, so, so if you talk about a survey, really, I wouldn't say less than 20. It's not really giving you much information, but it also depends on the type of questions that you're asking. So if you're asking open questions, usually after the fifth response, you will find that you're not learning much new. Yeah. So there is actually some studies that show that with 13 answers, you would have 100% of of the examples that you'd find. And with five, you would have about 80% of the answers that you would get. Yeah. So that's if you're looking at open questions and you want to get like big chunks of comments or like asking people about an experience that they've had, etc. If you're looking at closed questions and you want to start considering like statistics and etc., you would have to go for a higher amount of answers. So you'd be looking at least 20 as a minimum. Yeah. Yeah.
So you said that surveys shouldn't be the only form,
Main.
the main
Yeah.
kind of like method.
Yeah.
How would you go about like choosing your sample for doing interviews and like focus groups,
Okay. So,
especially in the perspective of like
okay.
a practice?
So you have to consider what is the your audience. Yeah. So if you have a business, I don't know, give me an example of one of your businesses, so I can give you a more practical
Growing mushrooms.
example. Sorry,
Growing mushrooms.
growing mushrooms. Okay, so you're growing mushrooms. Your audience is definitely people that like mushrooms, but most likely also people that are really interested in growing plants in general, or yeah. Yeah. Okay. So where would you be more likely to find people that are interested in?
Allotments
in
and student halls.
okay. So that's your audience. Okay. So if you were to interview people, where would you go?
Allotments. Student halls.
Exactly. And what type of questions would you ask them?
Do you like mushrooms?
Would that what would that give you? What type of question is that, and what answer would that give you?
So I mean it's one of the bottom two really. It's a yes or no answer. It's not something which they can, if asked, then maybe what interests you about
Yeah.
mushroom cultivation, and they could expand on that.
Yeah.
That might be.
So it's not a leading question because you're not assuming that they do like
Yeah.
mushrooms. So asking them, you're not asking them like, what's your favorite mushroom?
Yeah.
So it's not a leading question. It's a closed question. You're asking them a yes or no or this on that or that type of question. But yeah, basically you would have to look at your audience, like segment your audience to make decisions. So if you had a different type of business where, for example, you sell clothing, but you sell men's and women's clothing, and you are hoping to get feedback on men's clothing, so your audience would be people that like to buy clothes, but more specifically segmented would be men. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
sure you've done a lot of interviews,
Yes.
and you met a lot of different personalities as
Mm-hmm.
well. So how do you cope with the fact that when you ask open questions and you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to do interviews, that you control the interview candidates so they don't go off on a tangent or then start to tell a story or just complain when you actually
Yeah.
just want answers to very specific points?
Yes. So you have to think of interviews really as a conversation. Yeah. You're not especially when you're bringing people in to give you feedback on something or to give you their experiences. You're not necessarily um, it's not an inquisition. You're not sitting them there and asking them a bunch of questions and expect to get the answers to what you want directly. You will find that some participants are more of a yes and no type of person. They won't give you a lot of details. And the way that you have to go about it really is explore and dig a lot into what they say and sometimes repeat what they say and actually ask them what you mean by this and try and get more out of them. So if I ask you, for example, I can see you wearing like gray socks. Where did you get those socks?
It was me
Yeah, yeah.
from an online store,
Which online store?
from Bank Dandy.
Why did you buy it there?
Good quality.
Sorry?
Good quality, I
Good
guess.
quality. What is it that you like about it that shows that it's good quality?
It doesn't get too many holes too fast.
Okay. And why don't you like holes in your socks?
I'm just like getting itchy and cold.
Itchy and cold. Okay. See, I got a lot out of you just
By
about
asking that.
socks because you have to follow up on what they say. And sometimes they'll say things that are really interesting to you. And what you have to do is repeat that to them and say, this is actually really interesting to me. Can you explain more about it? Or sometimes agree to their experiences as well and show them that you are also human. Remember before I told you about empathy? Empathy is the biggest thing about customer experience. You have to understand what other people feel and the experiences that they've had and apply it to your product, apply it to your customer experience. Yeah, if you're not empathetic, which I think everyone is, unless you're a serial killer of some sorts, everyone has empathy. It's something that all human beings do have. So you have to understand that everyone has a different experience and they have experienced things in a different way. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so well, I mean, I'm in the travel industry,
Okay.
so as
Been there, done that.
as a booking, as your booking experience, how
Yeah.
you deal with a one-star customer who gives you a review of 1 star and is really angry
Mm-hmm.
versus a 5 star or a 3 star?
You deal with them in the same way. You approach these people with an open mind, yeah, and you ask them for more information. I think the one thing that you'll find is that if you go to these customers with an open mind and not pointing fingers, which some companies tend to do quite a lot, and I understand the frustration of being a new business and wanting to thrive and getting negative comments. It's got to be the worst thing that can happen to anyone that is trying to thrive in a new company, getting a negative comment. But that is also an opportunity. You shouldn't see it as a negative thing. You should see it as an opportunity to make your business better. So what you do is you got a 1 star review. It's fine. Let me reach out to this person and ask them, I'm really sorry. Could you give me a bit more details? How can I improve this? How can I make it better for you, but also make sure that the next customer doesn't have the same problem as you? So I think that's the most important thing. And also, if you get a 5 star review, you should also go to that back to that person and say, thank you very much for your comment. What was it that you liked about my service? What was it that made you give me this 5 star review? So I apply this to every single customer and you're getting a lot from it as well. So really a 1 and a 5 star review will give you the same amount of experience that you can implement in your business, really.
And if you the 1 star guy doesn't reach out back, if you ask him, how do you keep approaching that review?
So if you see that they're not receptive to reply to your messages or to your email or anything, I would maybe just leave it, really, because it just seems that some people are just there to leave bad reviews. It happens to everyone. Like they just want to complain or they just want to get into an argument, and those are the Karens and the Kevins, and everyone knows. And unfortunately, you'll have to deal with those people every now and again, like someone that just likes to leave negative reviews. You'll also find that sometimes competitors buy bad reviews. And especially big companies face that a lot, where smaller competitors, because they want to make a share of in their companies, they will buy negative reviews toward their competitors and then promote them as well on on their websites and saying, "Oh, we're better than this company," and most likely they've bought negative reviews for them.
And is it a refund a viable option?
Sorry?
A refund, is it a viable option for an angry customer? Or
For Well, I guess it really depends on the type of experience that you're trying to provide. I would say that if you had a negative review and you really need to understand a little bit more of the customer situation and then make a decision based on what you think it's right for your company, what you think it's right for to keep that customer. Do you want to keep that customer? Do you want them to let it to go? I think it's really important that you consider that customer retention, it's usually more important than new customer. Yeah, you'll find that it's more expensive to make new customers than to keep the ones that you have. You're welcome. No, no more questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.